Hello, and welcome to the Blues Kind Show. On today's episode, we're going to look at the difference in form between the firsts and the seconds for Carlton, because it's a lot bigger than it probably should be. Let's have a look. Before we get into it, I just want to say thank you for everyone who's, commented on previous videos, who's liking my content, who's subscribed. If you have not done so, please subscribe if you're enjoying what I'm putting out, and continue to engage, shoot me ideas, all the good stuff. Thank you very much. So, just to start with my opinion on the Brisbane game, I'm going to keep it short. I thought it wasn't a good performance. I know some people have, taken the glass half full approach to it, which is often my own approach. But on this particular occasion, if we're trying to see a difference of outcome, I'm not really that interested in the fact that instead of getting a decent lead and forfeiting it, we just didn't show up. And then, when Brisbane's seeming to have taken their foot off the gas a bit, we come back. I do think that we gave them a scare, but I didn't really think that we were truly ever in the game until maybe the last 3 minutes. And frankly, even then, I don't think it really would have kind of gone on. I think it would have been relatively straightforward for Brisbane to shut the game down, even barring the turnover that resulted in the sealing goal. The fact that we fought, it is nice, good on the boys for having a little bit of character, but it also indicates that Voss hasn't probably completely lost them. But if you watched my last video, you'd know that I think that this isn't really a relevant result to sort of assess Michael on. Losing the players is only one reason that a coach might need to be let go. So the fact that they had a spirited performance doesn't change the other failings that the team currently has. I really don't want to pile on, but I just want to basically say in a much shorter way, this result did not move me at all. Although it was nice to have a sustained period of football actually being enjoyable. I've watched the third quarter a couple of times, and it's kind of nice to get to have a little bit of enjoyment as a fan. So good for us for having a bit of a sugar hit, if that sort of thing, gives you any sort of emotional nourishment. If it's not for you, then totally understand that as well. It's nice to be able to watch, a run of 6 goals in a row. That is cool without needing to fast forward through any of the bad bits. But look, Jagger Smith, a 19-year-old, has said there's no such thing as a moral loss, and I don't want to argue with Jagger. He seems like he's got his head screwed on tight, so I'll take it from him. No moral losses. I think we can all probably agree with that one, hopefully. But in case you missed it, our Twos had a dominating win. Their third win in a row, beating the Casey Demons, affiliated with Melbourne, if you're unsure. 3 goals 17, 35 points for Casey. That's 3 goals 17. Oh, yikes. To 24 goals 13. 24 goals. 157. So 35 to 157. An absolutely dominating win for the Twos. And I watched it live and it was so thoroughly enjoyable. If you haven't done so, you can go on the Carlton website and see all 24 goals in a supercut, which is awesome. Really nice to have a very fun Carlton viewing experience. So thank you, any VFL boys that might be watching. Frankly, everyone played well. It is one of those games where it's impossible to pick out someone that didn't at least have some nice moments. My personal votes, and I'm not going to pretend, while I do watch every game in the Twos, I don't follow it to the extent of some others, so this is more me just trying to give some colour to what went down if you haven't watched it yourself. I thought Jack Ison was clearly the best player on the ground. I think he had 19 touches and 2 goals, but he set up some other ones. His kicking was an absolute class above for the level. So he continues to develop really nicely. Also, him and Dirk had to get the red eye. No, not the overnighter. I think they got the early morning job back because they'd gone up to Brisbane as part of the broader squad, but they obviously turned up 10 a.m. down at Casey Field. So that'd be a bit of a shock going from the lovely Brisbane weather down to the Casey Fields weather. At least it wasn't that windy. Anyway, 5 votes, Jack Ison. 4 votes, Dirk. Kicked 5 goals. His contested marking looked really good. He provided a lot of support higher up the ground. Really good stuff. I'd give 3 votes to Liam Reedy. 24 touches as a ruckman. I think 19 of them or something ridiculous like that was contested. It was, yeah, incredible performance. 2 to Blake Acres. He probably had the statistically best game with 31 touches and 2 goals. But I want to give some more shine to some other guys. And frankly, I criticised him in my video a couple of days ago. Look, Blake, you had a good game if you're watching, but I still kind of stick by what I said for now anyway. And 1 vote I'd give to Lewis Young. He was incredible. I think he had something like 16 marks. Playing in a back line where it really shows the difference for a defence when the midfield is doing a good job. Melbourne had very little quality disposal going inside 50, making the job of the defenders so much easier. Lewis Young, he looked like a young Matt Scarlett out there. He was absolutely dominant. But anyway, that, in fairness, like, he was a fullback having a dominant game. But I want to be really clear. There's a bunch of other guys that could make a very reasonable argument to get on my 5-person podium. So, like, just a very even performance all round. So, with the 2s going as well as they are, the question has to be, why is there such a large difference in the performance between the 1 and the 2s? To be clear, all of the analysis I'll do for the rest of the video is predicated on what I have consistently said, which is I think there is an issue in the 1s that is of a mental nature. I think it's the weight of pressure and expectation, and that has led to, events which seem to trigger them going into their shell or going into a more rushed and untidy brand of football, deviating from the plan that has been working. But I wonder if there's anything else that we can see that would either explain why that is occurring in only one of the 2 levels of the club, or if there's factors that could be particularly leading into it. Just for context, Carlton's record is 1 win and 8 losses with a percentage of just under 80, while the VFL is 4 wins and 2 losses and a percentage of just under 140. So, it's a 1 and 8 record versus a 4 and 2 record, and the percentage is almost doubled in the VFL. Why I wanted to make the video is something I've been thinking for the last couple of weeks. And it's one that I've wanted to wait and be patient to make because I actually have to criticise Michael Voss for once. Normally, I will 100% own the fact that I'm normally pretty generous to Michael, but it's because I think so many other people criticise him, I don't need to toss my 2 cents in. But on this occasion, I think I have thought that there's been an issue with selection integrity. And I know I'm not the only one to think that, but I thought, before I say it, let's wait a little bit, let the season unfold, but also let's gather some information. But I think it's probably even bigger than selection integrity. I think it goes to something a little bit, deeper in how the program is run. So I wanted to read what a little birdie had told me. So these are not my words. These are the words of said little birdie, of what they have been told by someone else. So take it with a couple of grains of salt, a fistful of salt, a bag of salt. As much salt as you think is necessary. But yeah, I think it gives an interesting insight. To be clear, I am going to make the message that this little birdie provided me with more vague than it is written to me, because it's somewhat identifiable who I might be referring to if I was to read it in its fullness. So, because these are real people, I am more reading this for an illustrative effect as opposed to, trying to spill the tea and put specifics out there into the world. So, a player on the AFL list who has regularly played in the 2s sat down with the coaching panel prior to the season. They wanted to play in the AFL side more than they had been, and they asked, hey, what are some concrete things we could put in place, some benchmarks or measurements in order to get me back in the team? And one of the members of the coaching panel was charged the responsibility of getting back to this player, and that apparently never happened. The coach that was given this job has then not followed up on this, and it's resulted in that player sort of feeling that they don't necessarily have a path back to the ones. So I don't know exactly when this message originated, so I'm unsure of who it would be referring to, but also I don't want to speculate, and I say that because I hope that you would all be respectful enough to also not speculate openly with that. So for me, what started as sort of thinking that the main issue was selection integrity, I'm now looking at, a player who apparently has the ambition of getting back into the ones and wants to try to take a bit of control of their career, maybe not getting the feedback of the assistants or, frankly, the coaching that they need, which would also explain why certain players are constantly stuck in the twos, seemingly with no way out regardless of how they perform, while some others seem to just immediately bounce back into the team regardless of what they've done. So I think I've come up with a couple of reasons as to why this might be the case.
Consistency.
The twos play their style of game for the whole of the game. While they have had some dips in games, which they've even gone on to win, including letting the opposition all the way back sometimes, the twos are still attempting to play the way that they want to, which seems to involve taking on the corridor more, playing on from marks or having overlap hand pass, forwards hand pass, and trying to spot up short to intermediate targets where possible. So it's quite quick. It requires running in numbers for the most part. They still try to play their way. What seems to change when they're not playing as well is more about their intensity. So their defensive intensity drops off. They're maybe not working quite as hard as you'd otherwise like and become a bit disorganized. And also sort of their crispness can go away. The attention to detail in their game of, don't hand pass to someone's feet, hit them in the hands. But, they're a young team. They're allowed lapses. It is what it is. But even in their lapses, they're still sticking with intent to what they're meant to be doing and playing the way that they have been told how to play. We've seen with the ones, this is not the case. They often go into their shell, start dump kicking, or they tend to speed themselves up far too much, in my opinion, and taking chances that aren't there, taking on tackles that they have no business taking on. They go away from what has obviously been working for them. Their intensity drops as well, but it seems to coincide with the style of football they're playing greatly changing away from what has otherwise worked for them. They don't play the same style for 4 quarters. This differs from the twos that, again, while their intensity may change, they are trying to do the same things in every quarter. That they actually stick to what they're meant to be doing. And that difference in consistency, to me, causes a marked difference.
Role availability.
This is a hard one, because if guys in the twos are in good form for the most part, and guys in the ones are not, why are there not some more changes of guys going out of the side and staying out of the side? So that guys who have earned their way in can stay in the side for longer. Let's look at some case studies. So for those who have watched the twos a bit, I'm sure you'll know what I mean by the roles that I've put in the VFL column. Let's start with Ashton Moyer. In the twos, he plays as a hybrid forward with spurts on the ball, whereas in the AFL, he plays as a third tall forward pretty much exclusively. So the reason why I've drawn a decision between a third tall forward and the hybrid forward role is there are times in the twos where he gets to play as a small. So he's not always just expected to be a marking target, which I think having him, confined in that way does sort of hurt his game. And the spurts on ball are really good for him. It gets him more involved in the game, and he's generally a very good kick. So having the ball in his hands is nice. Lockie Fogarty, in the ones, pretty much exclusively plays as a pressure small forward. In the VFL, he plays at 3 different levels of the ground. He does play as a pressure forward sometimes, but he also plays as a high half forward, and he also gets to just play on ball sometimes. So he gets a much greater variety of role. Ben Campo. I've put the question marks in the AFL just because he hasn't debuted yet. Also, I don't trust this team to not put him in a back pocket or something. So I just don't know what they're going to do yet. But he plays as an inside mid in the 2s. Why it's relevant is because we're seeing now that we have too many inside mids with Chera, Hewitt. I know he played forward on the weekend, but, earlier this season. Cripps, da-da-da-da-da. I don't know where Campo would play. Jordan Boyd, in the AFL, seems to almost always get some sort of a lockdown role. In the 2s, he is a rebounding defender who averages 22 touches a game at 90%. Slight exaggeration on a 90, but his kicking is amazing. And I think it is that freedom of role that probably helps him. I'm not saying that all these guys deserve to get brought up, but I am trying to say why when they're brought up, maybe it doesn't work out. Liam Reedy this season has had to play as a resting ruck or a forward. He got to be the sole ruck in one game against Luke Jackson. I'm not going to hold that against him. In the 2s, he gets to be a full-time ruck altogether. So I think this difference of role leads to a lot of guys when they get up to the 1 sort of stalling because they haven't practiced the role that they're doing in the 2s, and on top of that, it's just harder in the 1sts. So I do have a little bit of sympathy for them. I also want just to put a little bit of, not a little bit of numbers, I want to put a few numbers around it. Just to go back to Asher Moyer, for his AFL career, he averages about 8 touches a game and a goal a game. This year in the seconds, he's played 5 games. He's averaging 14 touches a game and a goal and a half a game. So he gets about a 50% bump both in touches and goals playing in the 2s because he has a more varied role. Lockie Fogarty has never averaged more than 14.5 touches per game in a given season in the AFL. And in the last few years, his average touches per game is about 11. He also has never averaged even a goal a game, with his career average being 0.4 goals per game. This year in the 2s, again, his best disposal average in a season is 14.5. This year he's averaging 20 touches a game. His career goals per game average is 0.4, and I think his highest ever is 0.6. So 0.6 goals per game. This year in the 2s, he's averaging 1.3 goals a game. He's also kicking all of his set shots. These 2 are probably the main players, I think, that are halted by how we manage them, because Lockie Fogarty and Ashton Moyer get to go down to the 2s, have graduated roles, and they perform really well in it. And instead of letting them play those roles in the 1s, we make them do the thing that we need them to do. They don't ever practice it, and they lose all their confidence. And it results in things like Lockie Fogarty, having the yips in the 1s but not in the 2s. So it's just a thought.
Selection integrity.
A thing that I think is a bit embarrassing for the AFL team is that I think their selection integrity is worse than the VFL team. As I hopefully demonstrated earlier, the VFL team puts players in their positions of strength. And in addition to that, all of the guys that are from the VFL list that they select are there on merit based on what positions are left over from the AFL guys. So guys like Dane Harvey have played a lot this year because his form is really, really good, and we need a key back, so that's a big tick for him. A guy like Flynn Riley, who has a ruckman from the VFL, who has played well previously when he's got to play, hasn't really had an opportunity this year because Liam Reedy or Hudson O'Keefe, respectively, have spent a lot of time in the ruck in the second. So, if there was a spot for him, his form would warrant it. Luckily for Dane, there is a spot, and therefore his form warrants him getting to play. This is different from the firsts, where we have seen a number of examples where I don't think the guy has earned their spot back in the team, but they've been given it anyway. The first example I want to touch on is Adam Cerra. He injured his hamstring in the Brisbane practice match. This was on the 18th of February. He played his first game of the year in the firsts on the 3rd of April, 6 weeks later. He didn't play any practice matches in the twos. This meant he played a part of one practice match in the preseason, because our other practice match was the week after, didn't come back in via the twos after having a 6-week layoff, and then he came in and had 19 touches. I don't think he was ready to come back. And so for me, the thing that a team with strong selection integrity would have done is say, Cerra, you're not at the level of player where you get to just come straight back into the team. Like, Patrick Cripps, fine, he can come straight back in. I don't think there's a lot of guys on our current list that should deserve that level of confidence. So I think Adam Cerra should have been made to go through the twos just to get his touch. I do want to be clear, he did one really good thing in that game against North, where he had 5 tackles, which is, a good number for a guy that was probably a bit underdone. But yeah, I don't think he should have come straight back in. Adam Sard. He played 4 games in the twos. He averaged about 20 touches a game, which is pretty good. But having watched all of those games, I didn't think it was worth bringing him back in just yet. I don't really think that he demonstrated any of his sort of trademark dash and flair, with the exception of the game against Tassie, which was the one he was elevated after. He was playing as a rebounder, but I don't think he was, using his legs as much as normal. He wasn't trying to seemingly break lines. He seemed to be playing a bit more of almost like a quarterbacking role, what Nick Newman sort of does in the firsts. Of the 4 games he played, his 4th was against Tasmania. It was his best game because they went down to Tasmania, which for a VFL team to travel, that's very impressive. And Tasmania is actually undefeated, I believe, outside of that game. So this was easily his best game in the run of form. So he had one good game in a row, and then he got picked to play against the Saints. The worst part, and probably the bigger issue when it comes to selection integrity, is that whilst Adam Sard had all right form and then one good game, someone else playing the same position, Billy Wilson, had put a really good season together. And even in that game against Hobart, he was better. So Sard had his best game of the VFL season. Billy Wilson, who had been in better form, had a better game. I don't think that selection integrity is brilliant. Matt Cottrell is the other one. He played 3 games in the seconds, but 2 of them were on heavily reduced minutes. At least one of them he only played a half. I think actually in both of them he might have only played a half. Before the 3rd game, he played the whole game. He then plays in the ones for 2 games and is dropped again. In a dominating win by the VFL this weekend just gone, he didn't crack 20 touches playing on a wing. And for perspective, Blake Acres on the other wing had 30 or 31, something ridiculous. So, the opportunity was there for a big game and he didn't have it. I want to be really clear. I am saying none of this to bag any of the 3 players that I've just named. My point is, I think there's been a desire by Michael Voss and the coaching panel to call back guys into the ones who they're comfortable with, instead of choosing guys who are proven to be in better form. With all 3 of those players that I went through, there were other guys in the twos who were playing better in the same position and therefore probably should have been picked ahead of them, but they weren't. And is that because, Vossi's trying to save his job? Maybe. Is this because the coaching panel, to call back to the story from the message that I read earlier, is this the coaching panel saying, we don't really have a list of 45 guys, we have a list of 35 guys? Is the program not running deep enough? There's obviously issues with the program, but for me, this is one where in a down year, you could actually see market improvement by enforcing more selection integrity. I think that sort of thing would actually help the ones to improve their performance overall, but it does not seem to be happening. In any event, I think all three of the reasons that I've touched on today, those being the consistency with which the two teams play respectively, the role availability within each team, and then obviously the selection integrity, are the main three reasons as to why the twos form seems to be so much better than the ones form. But that is going to do it for me today. Thank you everyone who came and watched. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. It helps the channel a lot. And as always, go Blues!